Alright, I am so sorry about this chapter. It's the end of the week. I should have done it earlier, but I didn't. And yesterday we had to purge a mentellect, and that left me with all kinds of things, so I'm sorry about voice today. Mentellects are just weird, and they leave weird side effects, so I'm really sorry about anything that happens. Especially if anything happens with my hair, so yeah.
Took you long enough.
Yeah, good thing you chose an easy spot.
Chapter 29. I pressed the button almost desperately now, but to no avail. Nothing happened. I sighed and turned back to the DVD player, looking at the ports and the cables, and something wasn't right, but I didn't know what it was, and I said, why is it so hard to get a DVD player working? And Scar said, what? I think the question is, why are you using a DVD player in the first place? Didn't the world graduate to streaming things a long time ago? And I said, my family's never been the wealthiest, and we never used streaming systems, really. It was just another cost for something we weren't going to use enough anyway. And I said, I'm not sure that streaming would work on Sarah Maya anyway. And Scar said, are you kidding me? I watch The Walking Dead almost every night. But she does things she shouldn't be able to do, so I don't know. But as she spoke, she was wrestling with Crimson, and it was so funny to watch those two together. She swiped his legs out from underneath him and sat down on his, on his back, holding herself to the ground with her magic to keep him from getting his front paws out from underneath him. He whined slightly as he turned his face to get his ear out from underneath his head. And the jostling was not doing much to help until they hit the ground, and something about it got the DVD player configuration to work, and I said, oh, it's working! Scar, can you get off of Crimson? And she said, what? He likes it! As she pulled away, he actually did seem kind of sad that she'd stopped roughhousing with him, which those two. And she pulled out a piece of toast and tossed it out the window, and Crimson leapt after it, and I could hear him hitting the ground 2 stories below, his feet against the snow. And I said, I'm still so worried that one of these days he's going to hurt a Saramayan, and I don't know what we're going to do. And Scar said, but he's changing, he's getting better. And I said, well, his tail doesn't have the spines anymore, but... And Scar said, but that's not it. His teeth and his claws are retractable now, and... Then she said, yesterday, he made me bleed, and I didn't even have to tell him to back off. He just backed off on his own. And I said, he made you bleed yesterday? And she said, it's fine. I had a healing crystal. The point is that he backed off. He's getting more tame. And that was not the moral that I got out of that story. Yes, it was true that he was changing, physically, becoming less terrifying. But he still had runes that glowed any time he was healing, and... I mean, that's fine, but the claws and the things were the problem. And the fact that he was massive. I said, I don't know. I just think maybe he'd be happier on his home world. And Scar raised an eyebrow and she said, "Are you kidding me? All he had there was waiting for his processed grass. And I'm sure the memories that he has there, I don't think we could send him back there if we tried." And that was fair. But I don't know. That was a thing to worry about another day, though. And I pulled up the main menu for Avengers and pressed play on the movie. And Scar said, "What's the occasion? You never take the evening off." And I said, "I don't know, it's just, we've been going so hard. And, there was everything with Decision and then closing off all of the abandoned Profithian cities on Saramea before they found out that we were here. And you've been taking care of Darren. And I just felt like we needed a break after a little bit." And she said, "Well, that's for sure." And we started watching the movie. And it was kind of nice to sit back. And I said, "Question." And Scar said, "Do you know how to watch a movie?" And I said, "Has Kessel said anything about the traveling trap?" And Scar said, "You just sit and you watch and you enjoy it. You don't think about political troubles or interdimensional worries or anything like that. You just sit and watch." And I said, okay. And I tried to, and did get into the story. And it was kind of nice to watch a story that I knew was real because, but that I didn't have to worry about. I didn't have to solve the problems. And it was really, really nice. But after a while of watching the movie, I started to feel antsy about something. And I couldn't tell exactly what it was. And I reached out to Destiny. We were on better terms at this point. But I'd learned to balance siring. It still wasn't perfect. I still don't feel like I'm where I want to be as far as knowing how to balance, like relying on Destiny and not. But I reached out to him. I said, "What's going on?" And Destiny said, "I'm not sure. Something's going to happen here soon, but I can't tell what or when exactly." And I said, "Anti-searing technology?" And he said, "Yes, but not in a way that I've seen before. Just be ready for anything." Which is not comforting whatsoever. I know that's not the point of Destiny, but it didn't help my nerves at all that he was warning me, be ready for anything that could happen. Regardless, I sat there and just kind of, I couldn't focus on the movie. I was just like, what is going to happen? Just trying to stay alert. And the feeling just kept building until I couldn't handle it anymore. And I was like, all right, I need to pause this. And I reached for the remote. And it wasn't on the couch. And I reached into the cushions and I couldn't feel it. And I stood up. The remote was gone. And I looked confused to Scar, but she was gone as well. And I immediately felt out further of worlds, and I could feel a world overlapped slightly, but closing in, and I passed through. And I didn't look where I was going because it was already closing. And so I was surprised to be surrounded by Profithian soldiers. Maybe I shouldn't have been surprised, but the Zelans, with their green and silver uniforms, tackled me to the ground. Almost a dozen of them. And they took me down before I could react. And I reached out to Saya to push them off of me. And immediately felt pain coursing through my body. The Profithian seer must be here. It had been a long time since I'd been hit by that electricity shock thing that came with siring. And that left me dazed for a moment. And the Profithians pulled me up. One of the Profithians had been hit by the electricity as well, but the seer didn't seem to be affected at all. She was wearing the same white gauntleted gloves that Firusanaya Fotheva was wearing. And I think she blocked with that. But the Profithians pulled me up and pulled my arms behind me. And I felt weak, and I looked in my shoulder and I could see a syringe poking out that they'd gotten me. like I could feel my physical strength disappearing, and I knew my mental capacity was about to go. And so I felt out for the gate that was there, and I overlapped the two worlds so that they were there. I didn't pull myself through though, because I still hadn't seen where Scar was. Plus, I kind of wanted to spit in this Profithian's face. That was just the first thing that came to mind. I'm sorry. But, right, yes. One of the Profithians grabbed my hair and pulled my head up, so I actually got my first view of the room. I could see the Profithian seer standing there in front of me, wearing the gloves and the same orange decorative poncho-looking cloak thing that all of the seers wore. And I could see Scar on the ground as well. Now, to this point, I'd been fairly even-tempered. Okay, maybe not, because I wanted to spit at the Profithian, which I've never wanted to do before. Anyway, but I could see Scar on the ground, unconscious. They must have pulled her through. I don't know if they were trying to pull me through, or if they were pulling her through to incapacitate her and then pull me through. I don't know. But she was on the ground. She'd been drugged and she'd gotten 2 doses, and she was unconscious on the floor. And there were 3 Profithians with guns aimed at her, all at varying distances. One of them sneered at her, and I could see his burnt face. It was one of the ones that I'd seen before on the World of Becoming, one of the ones that I'd fought, the one that I'd thrown into the geyser. Well, that Destiny had thrown into the geyser. But he was fingering the trigger, just waiting for the command to take her out, and that enraged me. But the Profithian seer said, gee, good to have you with us today. And she was speaking in English, and I could understand it, but my mind didn't fully comprehend what she was saying. She said, I am Sines the Sinai of Profithia, and I just came in to give you a little bit of a message. I'm not sure that Destiny told you, but this morning we got a prophecy, and I thought it best if you have it. And she began to speak. I'm trying to remember the prophecy. I couldn't remember it first off when she'd given it anyway. But she said, truth is fallen, trust is flooded, hope is gone, decision gutted. Dragons felled by mortal sires. One more life this war requires, not Profithians or man's, but a people's, one whole land's. Truth will once more fall to ruin, taken as Taima's brewer. And like I said before, I didn't get much of this. My mind was already getting muddy. A lot of my concentration was focused on holding on to Saramea so I could travel through at a moment's notice. Basically, the rest of my concentration was spent on Scar and just my anger building. I hadn't lost Scar in the World of Decision, and I wasn't going to lose her today. And my mind finally came to the conclusion that it was time to go. I sent Scar through the portal, and the remote had fallen into this world as well originally, and that fell through as well. I didn't mean to take that through, but I wasn't fully in control at this point. And the Profithian shouted out as Scar disappeared in a flash of light. And the seer turned and saw that and growled, and she pulled out a dagger, and as she reached for me, I thought, enough. And I reached back into Saramea, grabbed the remote. Well, not physically, because I was being held painfully by the Profithians, but mentally I reached into the world of Saramea, and I pulled the remote and pulled it through the gate right into the seer's heart. At least that's what I was trying to do. It ended up somewhere in her head, but threw myself back into the world of Saramea and took the gate with me, and one of the Profithian's boots, accidentally. I collapsed on the floor, My back arched over Scar's arm, who was lying underneath me. The boot toppled onto the ground, as did the metal disc that they were using as a gate. And everything fell silent. And I looked to the side and I could see the syringe there. And with all the concentration I could, I opened the gate again, enough to send the syringe through, and I closed the gate. And fell back exhausted. And tried to enjoy movie night the best that I could. My head, the way it was positioned, I could kind of see the screen, but the movie was moving twice as fast as normal anyways, just with how fast my mind was running. About halfway through the movie, Scar began to stir, and a few minutes later she pulled her arm out from underneath me and sat back against the couch. And a few minutes later she reached forward and pulled me against the couch with her and nestled her head underneath mine. And we sat there and yeah. The movie ended, and well, at some point during the movie, Scar regained full control of her body. I still couldn't move a muscle. But she reached into her pocket and pulled out a bag of hot buttered popcorn, and I don't know how she does what she does. Anyway, the movie ended, and she pulled us back onto the couch and cuddled up next to me and promptly fell asleep. By that point, I'd kind of regained control of like my fingers and my toes, but that was about it. And so I just kind of sat there, and my mental capacities had kind of come back by that point. And I was just worrying about what had happened. I remembered the fact that the seer had given a prophecy, and I could remember bits and pieces, words and little bits of phrases, but not the whole thing. And I reached out to Destiny, and I said, what was that prophecy? Was that really from you? And Destiny said, I don't know. I wasn't there in the room with you. And he said, everything with the Profithians is so messed up. Possibly, but was it an iambic tetrameter? And I said, what? And he said, did it go da-dum, 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 da-dum? I wasn't sure how to respond to that. I said, I don't know. And he said, well, I only ever prophesy in rhyming iambic tetrameter. And I said, why? And he said, it's just a meter and a rhythm that aligns with my properties. But he said, either way, I can't tell you, I'm sorry. He said, I can't even tell you the outcome of the next few weeks because of all of the anti-searing things that are being used. He says, I know the eventual outcomes, but not what we need to know for the end of this war. And that just was not comforting at all. And yeah. But almost as worrisome was the fact that with most wars, there's a front, and you can protect that war front, and you know where things are going to be happening. When the war front extends to your bedroom, it's a whole different thing. And that just left me so worried about what was happening. Once again, I was left to my thoughts that evening. It happens all too often, and I need better things to think about. But that's the end of chapter 29.